In this class, we will continue with our last program and we will now update it with more features. So in the last program, we created a simple fragment activity class and in which we added a fragment using the code. Now let us extend that code to make it more functional. Let's get started. So the first thing that we are going to do is to add more fields to the report class. Mainly we want a date and a simple another variable which says that whatever we reported, did it got resolved or not. So am resolved. So for date I am getting an error. I do alternate and I can enter. I have used the java.util.date. This is fine, and in my constructor I will also initialize my date to new date. And then I will go on to develop the getter and setter for my program. So let us say for m date I develop the getter and setters, and for and I would also do the same for my resolved. So where is my resolved? Generate getter and setter. We will put it at the top. Similarly, I will put it at the top only. I'm gonna change this to is resolved, set resolved. So I could directly generate my getters and setter functions. I'm now saving it. The second step that I will be doing is updating the layout that we used last time. So for updating the layout, we are going to add two text views, a button and a checkbox. So let's get started on that first. So we open the fragment report layout XML file. We already have our edit text here. Because we are using the vertical, I will add one text view on the top. So let me add one text view on the top. Text view. We have the height. Height would be wrap content, as you can see. We have the width. Width would be match parent, as you can see. We will have the text, Android text, which let's say we will have to define a new string for it. Slash report title label. We will define it in the strings later on. Now I am going to use something else as well which I have not used earlier. I'm going to use style, and today we will be discussing in the lecture more about style and how to make good layouts. So we start with Android. I go to the, because we are creating a list, I will go to the list separator text view style, and that's where we will end our text view. So we have to add a string. Let's remember it and add it later. Now we are going to add another text view. So let me just copy it, put it here, and width is fine, height is fine. The text will obviously change, and I will call it report underscore details label, and even the style is fine. And then I will add a button and a checkbox. So let me add a button. Button Android ID equal to. So as explained earlier to you, we use ID when we want to use that in our program. So by giving the ID, you can be sure that I am going to use it in the program, and I will call it report date. And then the usual Android layout height and width, I will just copy them here, and then I will also add some margin, because otherwise my button will look just very close to the border. Layout margin, and I will give it, in fact I will give it layout margin left. I will give it 16 dp, and Android layout margin right 16 dp. This ends my button. Then the last item in our layout, which is the checkbox. Let's add a checkbox as well. Checkbox width is again match parent, height is again map content. We do want to give it the checkbox also an ID. So we go here, we go at plus ID slash report underscore salt, or rather call it resolved as we have been calling it. And then we are going to give the same margin, so I will just copy them, and then we would like to use an Android text field. String slash port resolved score label 1 2 3. So we have to create 3 more strings. So let's go and create 3 more strings in our strings file. So I'll just copy one. Let's say v, and let me just change the name. Report title label, and this is nothing but resolve, and we will just give it the name. So this is an important step, but not always the most interesting one. Report underscore resolved underscore label. After defining these strings, ideally our layout file should not have any red items. Yes, it does not. So this is all very good. Now let us go to the report fragment class and start making use of these new widgets that we have added. So I will go, and if you remember, we created IDs for only two, so we are going to use only two of the widgets in our program, and have a checkbox and resolved button. I will say alt enter, put class as, everything is fine. Now we will have to make use of these two new widgets. So we'll go to the onCreateView method, which we earlier went, and before return we will have to uh, add some code so that we can make use of the button and other widgets. So aim.date button equal to button, and we will do it by v.find view by id. Our id was r.id.report date for the button, and then I do m.date button dot set text m.m. So whatever the date that we have created in our report file. So m report dot get date dot to string, because this will take a string, and then we will do m date button dot set enable false. Currently we are setting it as false. Now let's just quickly run our program and see what happens. So now you see that more details have come. Our date is being displayed here, but the button is disabled because we set it as disabled. Now the next step is to add the code for the checkbox. So m resolve checkbox equal to checkbox v dot find view by id r dot id dot report result. That was the id for our checkbox. If you are missing it, then you can see it here. That was the id for our checkbox, report resolved. So everything is fine, report resolved. And the next thing that we are going to do is to set a listener here, and resolved checkbox dot set on checked change listener. That is, whenever we toggle our checkbox to check or uncheck, new on check change listener. Once I add this, Android already fills in a lot of code for me on check changed, and in this only thing I want to set is that my report dot set result is similar to the boolean variable which is given here. Let me change the boolean variable name to is chat. I'll just say is chat. So this is fine. So now we have added all of our widgets into our program, and as we can see that all of them are now visible to us. So here we go. All of them are there. Yes. So this is our very basic UI for our application. We will keep improving it because we don't want to add just one item. We want to add multiple items, and then we want to see details. Now, in this program, we have used, especially in the fragment report, we have used some new things. So let me explain them to you. So one of the new thing is this statement called style, and then a value was given. Now let us for the time being remove this statement. Let me run the program. Now you see that earlier there was a kind of separator line coming here which is now no longer coming here. So that separator line is still visible after details, because if you look at it, then we are using a style after the text view of the details, and that's why we can see this almost invisible but a very distinct line which was earlier also after title, but now it is not. So this is what the style is. Let me put it back, stop, and run again so that you can see it very clearly. So yes, you see, this is the line. Now what is this line? So this line is actually a part of style, so it is giving a view of a separator. So what are styles? So styles are nothing but XML resources that contains attributes that describes how a widget should look and behave. So this is just same, you have some XML resources here, and it is similar to those XML resources. In fact, if you look into the value, uh, let me make it. So if you look here in the values, you will see that there is a file called styles.xml. So this is the file that has your styles. So this is the file that has your styles, and you can, if you click on it, you can see some values. And in this style, actually you can define new styles as well. So there is no need to just confine to what Android has given to you. For example, you may want that your text is displayed bigger. So in that case, you may want to define a style called, let's say, new style. Let me just put it here as sorry, new style, which I will give a name, and my name could be just a big text style because I want bigger text, and I will just give it to item. I will give it an item name like given here. I'll give it an item name, Android text size, and let's say 20 sp. What sp is, I will explain. uh, and then I would say, I would also give it some padding, so I will give it some padding. So item name equal to Android padding 3dp, and I go to end and I finish my style. Finish my style. Now I have created a new style which is my style, and this style will display the text bigger, and whenever I want to use my style I can use it just the way that I have been using the style given by the Android. So we were using a style here and a style here. We can simply use our own style. So we can say, let me try style equal to at style slash big text style. So this is all fine. I'm now using my style into the program. So let me remove the second statement because it will confuse. And now let me run the program to see how does my style looks like, my newly created style. And as you can see that the text size has increased. So this is all about styles. You can create different types of styles that you want, and then you can use in your program as you wanted it. So I will just remove it because we want to go back to our original style, which was the style given by the Android. So Android already supplies you lots of style, and then it also supplies you with the capability to create your own styles. The second thing that we have been using in our program is, for example, these values like dp and values which I just used, for example sp. So let's discuss what these values are. And as I explained earlier, that these are nothing but different units to describe how big your, for example in this case, your text will look like. So sp stands for scale independent pixel. So the scale independent pixels are density independent pixels that also takes into account the user's font size preferences, while dp stands for density independent pixels. And you will typically be using it for margins and padding, etc., and for anything for which you would otherwise specify size with the pixel value. So this is kind of giving you a pixel value size, while this is giving you more like a scale independent pixels. The other values that you can use are pt, mm, in, where pt is points, which is roughly equivalent to 1 by 72 of an inch. A millimeter is a millimeter, mm, and an inch is an inch. So there is no need to get confused, and if at all you ever get confused, just write a unit and run your program to see how it is impacting. Now the another important thing that I want to discuss is that you may have seen already that some of these parameters start with the layout and some of these parameters do not start with layout. So if you have not guessed already, then the parameters which start with layout corresponds to the layout, while the parameters which do not start with layout corresponds to the individual widget. So for example, in this case, when I am saying, let me go back, this is a good example. When I am saying that I want the margin, I am actually giving direction to the layout that this element checkbox should be displayed at a given margin. And you will soon realize that some of these widgets you will have to add with some margin into it. While in case of padding, I am giving instructions to the individual widget that how it should display itself. So the difference between the margin and the padding is that margin is an instructions given to the layout, while the padding is an instruction given to the individual widget. So we have already seen that what the margin does, so we can already see what the margin does. So here you can see that this is slightly off from the very beginning. Now let me just for the sake of experiment add a field called padding here and see how does the padding impact, and that will also make clear to you what's the difference between margin and padding. So we define a padding of 80 dp. Currently our application looks like this. We will now restart it and we will see what this padding has done. So we are adding the padding to the checkbox. Uh, oh, okay, no resource identifier. Let me, this was probably the wrong place to add padding. Let me add the padding to the button and run it. Okay, let me add what's the, oh, so our spelling is wrong, and as you see there was no error. So now let's run again, because anyway we wanted to add the padding to the button, not to the checkbox. Now you see, so now the button has displayed itself in a much bigger form, and that's what the padding does. Padding is an instruction to the widget that how it should display itself, while margin is an instruction to the layout that how it should place a particular widget there. So when I'm saying that the margin left is 16 dp, it is making sure that there is a difference between the left side of this to the border of it. But when I'm saying padding, the padding is to the button, and now the button is inflated given padding size, and that is what the difference between the padding and the margin is. So let me remove it now, save it. Now the another important thing that we need to see is the another important attribute that we often use is the weight attribute that we use. So let me try to provide some weight attributes and show that how does it impact. So before going to the weight, I will have to make some changes in the button, and let me just change the width to wrap content. If I change the width to wrap content, as you can imagine that instead of the button expanding to the whole width, will now only expand till the content is contained in the button. Now I have given the width, and let me now give the weight to it. This is just for the experimentation purpose. Later on we will go back and let me give it a value 1. Now currently you can see that our program looks fine, but our program is not occupying the whole screen. Now let's see what happens when we give one of its variable the weight. So I do this, and oh, so now our UI is occupying the whole screen, and every other widget is occupying the screen which they were earlier occupying in terms of area, but the button widget has increased so that it occupies the rest of the space, and that is exactly what is the use of the weight variable. So in Android, the width and the weight works together. They work together to define how something is displayed. So in the linear layout will make two passes to set the width of a view. In the first pass, it will look only at the width, and then it will in the second pass it will also look at the value of the weight. Now just for the argument, let me give the weight, and to show you how they are playing to each other, let me give it 2 here. Let us try to see what happens now. Yeah, so now you see that the resolved is occupying twice the space of the button, because 1 is 2 and resolved is the checkbox is 2. So that's how the weight plays out with width, and I have also already explained how does the style margin and padding works out. So you can make use of all this to create your layouts. Okay, now let us also see how to use the graphical tool of Android to do some manipulations, because so far we were doing the manipulation only in the XML. Now I have converted my layout to the landscape layout. So currently I have just converted it as it was in the portrait. It is same thing is being displayed in the landscape. So in the portrait and in the landscape. But this is not looking good to me, so I would like to actually use a different layout file when my application is in the landscape mode. So you can see that this button, if you click on this button, then basically this generates you a different layout file. So now I have got two layout file here. Let me magnify it for you. Now I have got two layout file here. One is the fragment report, which I originally created myself, and one is a fragment report.xml land, which refers to the landscape mode of the file. Currently both of the files are same, and it is just as good as turning my phone screen. But now I will change the land file to have a different view, and I will make these changes using the graphical tool of the graphical tool of the Android instead of making change in the code. So let's go back. Again, I open the landscape file, I see the text. This is currently everything is same, but now I will be making some changes. So one change which I want to make is that I want to bring this button in parallel to my bring my checkbox in parallel in line with my button. So this is a very simple change. Let me just use the graphical tool, and hopefully I should be able to move it now. uh, so this is my button, that's fine. I am just trying to move my result checkbox. Okay, so let me go to the text file and actually add, let's say, a linear layout here, but we can possibly also do it here as well. So I want to add a linear layout here in the report date, report title. This is my widgets. Oh, sorry. So I was making a mistake. I should take the linear layout here, horizontal, and I should add it right after the details. I add my linear layout, and then inside that linear, so I added my linear layout. Now inside that linear layout I will add my button. I will add my button, and I will add my checkbox. So yes, so I am not using, but let's see what change happens in the text file now. So as you can see in the text file now, a linear layout is added just before the button and checkbox, and button and checkbox are arranged in the linear layout of orientation horizontal. So this we have done using only the design, and if we run the program, then our program should behave differently when it is rotated. So now see that in the rotation it is showing me the checkbox side by side, and while in the portrait it is showing the button up and then down is the checkbox. Now let's also again see what we were doing earlier with the weight, and this is actually a very good opportunity, because now I would say Android layout weight equal to 1, Android Android layout layout for, so let me delete the width and just use the weight equal to 2. Oh, sorry, I'm already using it. So I'm use it just once, and let me delete the width from here as well. So earlier you were saying that it was giving us a warning. Oh, so I will not delete it, I will just make it 0, and I will just make it 0. Okay, so 0 dp and 0 dp. Now I'm not getting any warning. I have converted the width to 0, but I have added a weight which I have given 1 to the button and 2 to the checkbox. Now let's see what happens. When we run our program, everything is fine in portrait, but we never made any change. Now do the landscape. Now you see that because the weight is double for the layout for the checkbox occupies 2/3 while the button occupies 1/3. Let us make a change here. We want a bigger button. We want a smaller checkbox. Let's run it. So let's run it, and this time the weight is twice and the checkbox is 1/3. And similarly, as you may have guessed, if I give it 1 1, then both will occupy equal space. So both will occupy equal space. So this is it. This is it. In this lecture, you have seen how we use the graphical layout, how we learned about styles, themes, margins, paddings, and how to use the graphical tool to change the layout. So now let's go back to our program very quickly. So now we still have only one fragment, and we have one activity, fragment activity. But now we have got two. Now we have got two files to refer to our fragment layout. One when it is in portrait mode, and one when it is in landscape mode. And our another layout file is for the main activity. So that is it. In the next lecture, we will develop on this application and make it a bigger application with more functionalities.